Have you ever noticed someone who never posts their photos online? No selfies, no birthday pictures, no vacation updates, nothing. In a world where attention feels like social currency, these people almost seem invisible. But here's the interesting part: psychology tells us that this behavior isn't random at all. In fact, it can reveal a lot about a person's confidence, mindset, and emotional intelligence. So instead of assuming something is off, let's take a deeper look at what's really going on beneath the surface. 1. Privacy over popularity. First, let's talk about privacy. Psychologists suggest that people who rarely post pictures tend to have what's called a high privacy orientation. In simple terms, they value control over what others see, know, and assume about them. Now, this doesn't mean they're antisocial or hiding something. It just means they're selective. They understand that once something is shared online, it's no longer fully theirs. While many people feel the urge to share moments instantly, to capture validation through likes, comments, or reactions, these individuals take a different route. They don't depend on external approval to feel good about their lives. They enjoy their moments as they are, without needing to turn them into content. And that's powerful, because when your happiness isn't tied to other people's reactions, it becomes a lot more stable and genuine. That quiet choice to stay private, it's often a sign of inner security, not isolation. 2. Strong self-awareness. Next, let's look at self-awareness. Research on something called self-concept clarity shows that people who post less often have a stronger, clearer understanding of who they are. They know what they value, what they want, and what truly matters to them. And because of that clarity, they don't feel the need to constantly express or prove themselves online. Think about it: when someone is unsure of their identity, they're more likely to look outward for validation. They may follow trends, compare themselves to others, or seek reassurance through engagement. But someone with strong self-awareness doesn't need that constant feedback loop. They're already grounded in their own identity. So instead of chasing what's popular, they focus on what's meaningful to them. Their happiness doesn't depend on how others react. It comes from a deeper, internal place. And that's why they often seem more consistent, more calm, and less affected by online pressure. 3. Emotionally secure. Now let's talk about emotional security. Posting less is often linked to what psychologists call secure self-esteem. This is a type of confidence that doesn't rely on attention to survive. In other words, they don't need to prove their worth to anyone. They're not posting selfies to feel attractive, or sharing achievements just to feel validated. It's not that they can't. It's that they don't need to. And this makes a big difference. Because when your self-worth depends on how others respond, it becomes fragile. One bad comment, one low engagement post, and suddenly your mood shifts. But emotionally secure individuals don't operate like that. Their sense of self stays steady, regardless of what's happening online. Psychologists often find that people with this kind of emotional balance tend to be less anxious, less approval-seeking, and more focused on real-life growth. They invest their energy into things that actually matter: relationships, goals, and personal development, rather than constantly managing an online image. 4. Deep thinkers, not show-offs. Another interesting trait: many of these people are naturally more introspective. They tend to think deeply, reflect often, and speak or post with intention. Instead of sharing every moment, they ask themselves, does this really matter? Is this worth sharing? And if the answer is no, they're perfectly okay keeping it to themselves. This connects to a concept called an internal locus of evaluation. It simply means they measure themselves based on their own standards, not other people's opinions. They don't need applause to feel accomplished. They don't need attention to feel important. And because of that, they're usually more drawn to meaningful, authentic interactions rather than surface-level engagement. They'd rather have a real conversation with one person than get hundreds of likes from strangers. It's not about being distant, it's about being intentional. 5. They understand the illusion of social media. Finally, let's talk about awareness. Many people who stay low-key online have a clear understanding of how social media really works. They know it's not always real. It's curated, filtered, and often exaggerated. Psychologists describe this through social comparison theory, which explains how people constantly compare their lives to others, usually to the most polished highlight reel versions. And over time, that comparison can take a toll, can lead to self-doubt, insecurity, and the feeling that you're somehow falling behind. But people who choose not to post as much often recognize this pattern early on. So instead of participating in that cycle, they step back from it. They limit their exposure. They avoid unnecessary comparison. So the next time you come across someone who never posts their photos, don't be too quick to judge. They're not necessarily shy, antisocial, or disconnected. In many cases, they're simply more grounded, more self-aware, more emotionally secure. They don't need constant visibility to feel valued. They don't need attention to confirm their worth. They're comfortable being who they are even when no one is watching. And honestly, that's what real confidence looks like. If you enjoy diving into the psychology behind human behavior, why we think, feel, and act the way we do, make sure to subscribe. Because here, we don't just scroll through people's lives. We decode the mind behind them.